Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the Borough Crafton discussion meeting Monday, July 9th, 2018, with the flag salute with Mr. Amendola.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for so patiently waiting. We had an executive session to discuss personnel and real estate. No actions were taken. May I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Amendola?
Here.
Mr. Kraus?
Here.
Ms. Perry? Here. Ms. Glasser? Here. Ms. Stamets?
Here.
Mr. Rosario?
Here.
Mr. Lavasser?
Here.
Mayor Bloom?
Here.
Solicitor Corbel?
Here.
Interim Manager Kazarowski.
Here.
Thank you. May I have the approval of the bill list dated July 9th, 2018?
So moved. Seconded.
Any discussion?
Yes, was there one we were leaving off, we discussed? Any executive session? See how far that.
Oh, well, that's a,
They're separate motions.
they're separate motions. Yep, thank you. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed? Approval of the bill list, thank you. Approval of the minutes dated June 25th, 2018.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The approval of the minutes, thank you. Moving forward to citizen comments for items on the agenda. Dennis, let me see. Okay, all right. So the topic isn't on the agenda, we'll just have to wait till the meeting. We should be able to move forward pretty quickly. Okay, thank you. All right, moving forward to the solicitor's report regarding, first on the agenda, vacant property registry ordinance. Mr. Corporal?
Yes, thanks. I just passed out, this would be the thicker of the two packets I passed around. Crafton already has what I would describe as a vacant property ordinance in chapter 167 of the code, and that is the second stapled paper in that packet. What I have done on the first stapled packet there is revise the ordinance to reflect some of the items that were raised by the Borough of Tarentum ordinance that was provided by Mr. Kraus. So I suggest that council take a look at the revisions in the ordinance, and we can discuss it in more or greater detail at a future meeting. But essentially what this does is it gives a little more teeth to what we have been doing with respect to a vacant property registry. It looked to me that registry was adopted many years ago when these items first became more prevalent in Pennsylvania boroughs. And this will update the ordinance to give you all the tools you need to continue. There are some comments in the margins that I made about some of the issues to think about, including the fee structure, which is on page 15. I have some legal concerns about the way the fee structure is put together. And to be honest with you, I typically don't advise you to include a fee structure in the ordinance itself. Typically, I would advise you to, and I will ultimately in this regard, to put that in your fee resolution so you can change it each year without amending an ordinance. So take a look. If anybody has any questions between now and the next meeting, don't hesitate to call or email me. And if it's the will of council, we could put this on the agenda in a couple weeks to talk about it in more detail after everybody's had a chance to review and digest it. I'll also mention that there are, in this packet is the example ordinance from the Borough of Tarentum, as well as a summary of a couple of cases. if you have trouble sleeping tonight, there's a case or two in here you could read in a summary. And they're both of those cases are referenced in my comments in the margins of the draft ordinance. Does anybody have any questions at that point on the vacant property ordinance registry? No? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, I know that there's a lot of municipalities of various sizes that are adopting
Yes.
some kind of financial penalty for those folks that are abandoning their properties in the confines of their townships or boroughs. And based on what you just advised here and what you stated in this, you're saying that you're leaning against those?
So my concern with the fees, and that one of the cases in your packet is about the legalities of setting fees. So the law states that you have to set fees that are designed to basically reimburse the borough for its cost. You can't use the fee structure to as a revenue source, essentially. And it seemed to me arbitrary in the Tarentum ordinance that the fees would start out at $150 a year, and then after 10 years of being vacant, the fee would be $5,000 a year. And if we are going to use a scheme like that, we would have to be able to justify why it is $5,000 to register your property in year 10 and beyond, and why it was only $150 in year 1. There could be carrying cost issues with the borough. Maybe we have to monitor it more regularly. Maybe we are boarding it up or those sorts of things. But we already have mechanisms in place to recoup the borough's costs if we would have to replace a boarded window where the board fell off. What I put in this ordinance, which isn't in the current vacant property ordinance that the borough has, is a penalty structure where if you do not comply with the ordinance, we can go to the magistrate and seek fines of up to $1,000 per day for a violation of this ordinance. That would be failing to register, failing to secure, those types of things. So there is a penalty structure built in if folks do not comply, but it's not arbitrary in the sense that, again, how do you justify a $5,000 fee in year 10? Maybe we can, but it's hard to sit here and say that each and every property there would be a $5,000 fee that would be legal under Pennsylvania law.
So really what I'm hearing you say is not so much that a penalty isn't necessary to stop bad behavior, it's so that the justification of the number is really what you're saying.
Correct, you have to justify the fee.
Okay. You know, my thought process with this is looking for in-house solutions to fight homes that are falling down and have become unsafe, uninhabitable, and public nuisances. And I'm just asking, I'm spitballing here really, but I'm just saying, let's say $5,000 is what we passed and that's what the law is. Couldn't we justify it and say it's the cost of knocking the property down because it's only a fraction of the cost of knocking something down? And by year 10, if you can't find a renter for your home or get it sold after 10 years of sitting out somewhere in this town, then perhaps it's going to have to be a patient that can't be resuscitated.
I mean, that hypothetical presupposes that the home is slated for demolition. If we were to move forward after having a vacant property for 10 years, where the fee each year is $150 to pay for the paperwork processing in the office, for the code enforcement officer to make a visit or two, that's probably reasonable. But if we determine that after 10 years the building should be torn down, we will go through the typical process, and then you would file a lien for the cost of demolition against the vacant property. And when it sells, the borough will be reimbursed. So the way I see the fee is it's putting the cart before the horse. It's presupposing that the fee is reasonably related to the continuing to maintain the registry on that individual property. I mean, I view it as being designed, it's to dissuade you from maintaining a vacant property for an extended period of time, but that's not what the fee structures in Pennsylvania are meant to do. They're simply meant to reimburse the borough for its cost. It's not, you can't use it as a deterrent or to earn revenue.
So a fee is a fee and a penalty is a penalty.
Correct. And we can still go to court and say, hey, this house was supposed to be renewed, they didn't file the paperwork, and now we want to be reimbursed $1,000 a day under the penalty provisions. You can go to the magistrate and you argue your case and you try to get your penalty.
So what other tools would you recommend that this council and this borough use then, aside from that? I mean, obviously I just got this right now, so I will go home and take a look at this, but in addition to, what other things would you say are, aside, in-house options to fight these types of problems?
I mean, I think the most effective manner to fight these issues is to have the eyes on the street and the bodies on the street to go and inspect these buildings that are problem buildings and to put them into the system. I think we've been doing that pretty well this year. We've looked at least 6 different properties. There may be 100 in the borough, I don't know. But that's the way, in my view, to sort of push these properties through the system.
Yeah, but the 6 you were looking at are simply because I've driven past them so many times, I can't stand them to look at them anymore. So, had I not been here, we probably wouldn't be looking at some of those properties, might only be looking at 1 or none. So, that's really my question then.
Fighting blight is a proactive process. It's not going to happen through osmosis or through neglect. The properties got that way because of neglect. So if it's a priority of this council to address blighted properties in the borough, you have to be proactive in doing so. We can do that from a statutory ordinance perspective, but you can't just rely on the law. You also have to rely on people in the borough, reporting structures, borough employees investigating and reporting on these structures, and council has to have the will to address these issues that are raised by the residents and by our employees.
Thank you.
Mr. I'm just going to jump in there real quick. A lot of these properties are vacant and abandoned, and you could have $1 million fine. If people are non-responsive, you can't find them, you can't locate them. And a lot of these properties sit for a long period of time, and even though every violation is written up and sent out, those letters are returned because you can't find the owner of the properties. What about a quick term fix is really if the properties are cleaned and leaned, something that the borough can do on a regular basis to at least upkeep the properties?
Yes, we
Is
can.
that something that you would say is a good viable choice to actually?
We already have that tool in our toolbox. The property maintenance code exists. You issue citation or you issue a notice of violation if it's not repaired. The borough can go in and cut the grass or do whatever and then lien the property for the cost to the borough. And that would be manpower, equipment costs, etc.
Right, and in addition, we have tools under Act 90.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if you're a derelict owner in Crafton and you live, in Harrisburg, we can lien you there as well.
Yeah, we do have the ability to go after the owner in a different jurisdiction, yes.
And again, Act 90 empowers the municipality to not only lien the property in question, but the current property where that person lives. If he lives in Florida,
Yep.
you can lien that property as well.
That's a little more difficult than someone that lives in Harrisburg, but it can be done.
All right, well, thank you very much. I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to pass or suggest that we simply just pass willy-nilly everything that everyone else does, but I did see this in the Post-Gazette. I went and I read it. I talked to some of the interns here. I talked to the people at the beat committee that we meet with on Thursdays. There seemed to be some groundswell for action like this, so I think it's certainly a conversation to have, and this is definitely helpful. It's a step in the right direction, so thanks.
Thanks, Brad. All right, moving forward, Crafton Boulevard property.
I also provided a memo before the meeting to every member of council that describes our research into each of the properties. That's 1654, 1656, and 1664 Crafton Boulevard. From a delinquent tax or municipal fees, the only property that has really any history is 1656. That is property that's owned by the Bank of New York Mellon. And it is primed to go for sheriff's sale. The school district already has a judgment against the property. But when talking to their delinquent tax solicitor in Georgia Tax, it hasn't been put up for sheriff's sale because there's a belief that it would not sell.
Because it should be.
It's in really bad, right. So with respect to that property, that's 1656, 1654, and 1664, the most important information that council needs to obtain is the current condition of those structures. Mr. Kraus informing me of the condition that had been observed from the street, it does sound like those properties are in extremely bad shape. So I'm not sure if Mr. Felton has issued his report on these properties, but I think that's probably where we're going to be able to make some hay on how to address them, so.
The report that we got from Mr. Felton, I asked for more detail. It was a little light. I just asked for more detail from those properties that I could bring to council and solicitor for action.
Okay, so Mr. Felton will reissue a report with more details then? Okay. And at that point, I think we can consider whether or not there's condemnation and or demolition. I think some of these have been condemned in the past, but we probably want to just button it up by doing that all over again and setting them for demo.
One of these three has a condemned sticker on it from 2000.
Okay, that's been a while.
Yeah.
So that's where I see all three of these properties. That's where the relief is probably going to lie for the borough. So let's see what Mr. Felton has to say with his more detailed report, and hopefully in 2 weeks we'll have a better sense of where we can go and make some recommendations to council at that point. I had two other quick issues. I just wanted to let council know that both zoning ordinance updates that we had previously considered, that's the body piercing tattoo ordinance and the other ordinance that removes the commercial uses out of the residential zones, those have both been sent to the county for review and should be up for council to consider in end of August, early September timeframe. And then secondarily, I've been working with the fire department and should have a memo to issue to council about the International Fire Code and what issues council should be considering into extending its application in the borough to address some of the concerns that have been raised at past council meetings. And that's all I have in my report.
Thank you.
Is that too far to open up yet?
I do not know, but they are able to open up at this point.
Yeah, they're not.
They're not open.
Okay. Mr. Bloom?
Hi.
Welcome back.
I've been on vacation. Because of that, I have nothing to report this evening. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Angela, would you like to come forward and tell us about the wonderful Crafton celebrations we had last week?
Yeah, so I don't have a financial report for anybody because we didn't get the rest of that figured out yet. Hopefully this week. We're meeting tomorrow night. If anybody wants to come, we'll be next door in the community center at 7 o'clock. But it was, as far as I heard, really, really great festival this year. I had rave reviews on the cash, the food stands. I couldn't get any more compliments on how we got way too many compliments. And then we also had a lot of compliments on the beer garden. For those of you wondering, we sold thousands of dollars in beer throughout the week. We didn't have a single problem with anything that had to do with beer, so it was a huge hit. And then the booths that we rented this year, people raved about. And normally when you volunteer at the festival, especially for somebody like myself or somebody on the committee who's there for the whole entire time, usually you get a lot of complaints from citizens who aren't volunteering, who are there complaining about just about everything that we did wrong with the festival. This year, I didn't hear one single complaint the entire time. Other people might have heard complaints, but normally you can hear, 10 of them in one day from people who have an opinion, and this year we didn't get any of that. So that was super great. We're really exhausted. I mean, myself and my parents were down there every night until 2 o'clock in the morning, getting ready for the next day, and I think a lot of that's underappreciated from the community, so we are just so tired from all of our volunteer work. We're going to wrap it up and then take a little bit of a break before next year. But we wanted to thank you guys for the people who volunteered from the borough and from council. I know we had Charisma was down there, Catherine, Rob, Jack Kovacek volunteered, Bill, Abby, Brad, and Freddie, you donated all your cars to the parade. So we thank you guys for all your support that we had, and Public Works did a phenomenal job for us this year. We hope to have their support again next year. The electric it couldn't have been any better. It was so great. Dave did a great job down there with Public Works. Those guys are working so hard. And then in 95-degree weather, sweating every day, making the festival worth it. Their efforts were just so great. I got so many compliments on the lighting and the layout, the way that they had done everything. We hardly had any problems with the electric this year. Our French fryer didn't go out one time, so that was really great. So the support from Public Works, Rob, and Council was just super, super great. So hopefully after this week, we'll probably have a financial report when we get all of our tickets back in from the games and we get everything situated. We'll be able to see how we did and then start planning for next year.
So who won the 50-50 round?
Who won? Do you know who won?
I can't remember.
Wasn't me, was it?
It was claimed instantly.
It was a young kid. He bought the ticket on the first day, and he was still in the park on the last day to
Dude,
collect his
You
money.
might have sold that ticket then. We were there. No, we didn't.
On behalf of the council, I wanted to thank everybody for participating, and I thought it was a wonderful team effort. And again, Rob, thank you for everything that Public Works did. And I'd like to thank the fire department for their participation and keeping everybody safe. So again, thank you. And also a big shout out to the police department. They were there 9-day keeping us safe. So thank you. So moving forward to the business agenda, we have under Public Works a motion to authorize and pay request number 3 for El Grande Industries in the amount of $3,061 for the construction work completed between May 21st, 2018 and May 29th, 2018 for the Crafton Park Improvements Project as requested by the engineer and included in the 2017 Alcosan Grow Grant.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
So this is for the rain garden?
This is for the parking lot. The majority of this payment is going to go towards that. I would suggest that the next motion, which is to pay the remainder of the project, $11,439.25, be withheld due to the concerns concerning the vegetation down in the rain garden. I don't think
So then this
we
isn't
should
the,
withhold the entire payment from El Grande. I think the last part in the next motion would be prudent to withhold until we have some more clarification and resolution on that. part
okay,
of the
so then
project.
this is for the parking lot and not for the rain garden?
Yeah.
And the work has been completed and it's been completed satisfactorily?
One small issue that I think don't have no problem to resolve it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving forward, a motion to authorize pay request number 4 and final for El Grande Industries in the amount of $11,439.25 for the construction work completed on June 1st through June 30th, 2018 for the Crafton Park improvements as requested by the engineer and included in the 2017 Alcosan Grow Grant.
So moved.
Second. All right, so as we were saying in the previous motion, I think this would probably be prudent to withhold until we actually have some resolution on whose responsibility it is to resolve the plants that are in the rain garden. We've taken a lot of criticism about the fact that they didn't come in, the plants didn't come in to growth. They were installed late last year, so we needed to understand what the path forward would be without the borough having to go through additional expense to resolve the issue.
And this $11,000 payment though is just on the garden itself.
what I'm saying is, this amount should be withheld to help resolve the issues.
But this amount only involves the.
No, this amount is just an amount on how they were billing. I'm saying hold one of the invoices until we get resolution versus going down the path like we did with the pool where we say, all right, we'll approve it, and then we're gonna have to go through the bonds, and then we have the lawyers going back and forth. This way, they still have skin in the game to help us resolve it, because they're gonna want their last, 12,000 bucks from us. So that's the strategy there, because we just want the project to be resolved adequately for the borough.
So should we table this motion till another time? Is that what we should do?
Yes.
Table or vote against it?
Either way.
I don't know if we should vote against it. Should we table it?
We can table it.
Just bring it up next meeting.
All right, so we'll table this.
So they've got a time.
Someone has to make a motion to table.
All right.
A motion to table, the motion on the floor.
All right, if there's no debate, and then council has to vote on a motion to table.
All right, all in favor of the motion, to table the current motion?
Aye.
All right.
All right, all opposed? All right, motion tabled, thank you. All right. So, interim manager Kaczorowski, Public Works Director, sorry.
I apologize, I wasn't in town for the last storm that hit with that, I guess, that historical amount of rain that fell. I did get to view it in Florida from Disneyland, watching national news. Thank God Crafton Borough didn't get hit like Bethel Park, Bridgeville, and have the damages and so forth that were done. My sister lives in Bethel Park, who was with us. There are actually 3 houses were lost on Bethel Park on Thunderwood Drive. It's a beautiful plan, but there was 3 probably $400,000 houses that sustained serious damage to their foundations and actually had to be demoed. Getting back again, I wish I was here because I think the first line of defense what you want to do is go out and check the sewer lines, make sure that all the lines are operating properly. We got back and we gave Gateway the direction to go out and CCTV all the locations that had problems. Sterrett Street, Maxwell Street, McMunn. Those 3 locations were, we focused right on those to make sure that those lines were operating like they should. Unfortunately, I didn't get the information back from the engineer. I got an email today saying they will review the tapes and get back to me sometime this week. I don't have anything to report as far as the condition of lines. My recommendation, again, is to see if the lines operated properly. If they did, most of these lines are 8-inch combination lines. The amount of rain that comes through that system is an 8-inch lines. It's probably not going to hold. It's not going to be able to take it. Those people with laterals, they're tied into the line that aren't tied in properly. When I say properly, on top of the line, if that pipe runs half barrel, all that water is going to fill into their basements before the pipe goes to the top. So one of the most important things that I wanted to do was check the tappings. For those properties that had some severe flooding and backups, I wanted to make sure that the lines were tapped into the main line properly. Second thing, if we have an incident like this again, I'm going to recommend to the council into the borough that we disconnect all the downspouts. When you have 8-inch combination lines, you want to keep out as much stormwater as you can out of the system. So these properties continue to have damage and backups in their basements. I recommend that we start removing downspouts from all the properties in the affected area. The third thing would do to be check valves. Recommendation to borough, if we have 3 or 4 properties continue to have problems, we put check valves in. These are backflow preventers to keep the water from actually entering the property. So far in Crafton Borough, I think we have one that the borough agreed to install on Woodlawn Avenue. Unfortunately, that amount of rain that came down, that system worked fine for the last 3 years, but that storm there, the backflow preventer actually failed, and they got a little water in the basement. Again, the amount of water that came into the system and hit us that day was historical, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. But preventive maintenance, I think, is we're taking the proper actions to ensure that the borough residents have the best they have that we can give them as far as the sewer lines itself, and at least steps to take if it does fail again.
And the ones on Chartiers, duplex are flooded.
The Chartiers is, what happened with Chartiers, it was the Chartiers Creek that flooded on Range Road. That water came up, and that's a problem because the system's a 48-inch line. I think it flooded that whole bottom area of Chartiers. That whole area, I think it took heavy equipment from the city of Pittsburgh, which was mostly responsible for that creek and the pipe itself that runs underneath the roadway. But I know they responded pretty quickly, so.
We were early the next morning, yeah. Now, is that to be cleaned, can we get agreement that they clean that out? Monthly, or something?
I know it's been, I can check with the supervisor at the 5th Division to make sure they do it, but that is an ongoing process that normally when you get a storm event or a storm warning like that, that the city's past practice was to automatically go out and check that, because that's a major impact on Saloni's Bakery. That stops them from, entering their property actually to get to the bakery. So that's a pretty big business that pays a lot of taxes. And I know the past proper protocols go down and do an initial inspection to make sure those pipes are open. But again, with the rainfall like that, it doesn't take long before tree limbs, branches, litter and debris can clog the pipe and cause it to back up, even with the preventive maintenance.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Can you add to your list of CCTV projects to Gateway this gentleman over on Ingram Avenue and try to figure out how they can work with the property owner over there to figure out what's going on with his catch basins and his storm drains, because I recognize him.
I
That was
think
an
the-
issue for you.
I looked at that property too. I mean, actually, that location is, Rare's property, is a concrete parking lot for the Lobo properties. The water travels down Maxwell Street, comes down. I think there was a catch basin, a private catch basin I have to look at to see if it was clogged or blocked. Now, do I have any jurisdiction? Not as a manager or public works director, but I do as an ordinance officer, and requesting to actually have the gutter clean and fill, or clean and fill open, the catch basin open now. He's at the very low point of that property too, so I mean, there's a 45-inch line that goes through his property. I think that was you where the tree come up and the 45-inch pipe was exposed for at one point, about 2-3 years. So there is a big storm line there. It's just the idea of actually having that catch basin on that private property.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Any other comments on that subject? All right. Moving forward to administration, a motion to approve the hiring of Samantha Nardozzi as assistant swim coach for Crafton.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Yes, why are we hiring a new one, or did we lose one?
How was it ever had, Chris McKee fill out something?
Yeah, they have a swim coach that, I guess is absent, and they haven't been able to get a hold of her. This is actually Mike Schneider-Walker's daughter. She's already been helping out with them.
This one here is?
Yeah.
So she's a
They're
replacement.
just they just recommended that we bring her on as a swim coach.
Okay. Any other questions?
So it's not a new hire, she's a
Right,
replacement.
correct, it's a replacement.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed? Motion carries. Just to ride on this subject, Steve, we were talking about the wage resolution last week. And do we have powers to amend and some of the changes that were made earlier in the season? Did you have an opportunity to investigate the issue between the co-managers? Are we in compliance?
Yeah, the wage resolution is, I think it's clear that that the money is set aside for the manager, but there is no reference to co-managers, but my understanding was that the money is being split. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's fine from a fee resolution perspective. We did talk about increasing the pay. And there are potential issues there. However, because we aren't paying them at this point and don't pay them until the end of the season, I think it's okay to change that at this point. So it's up to council if you'd like to do that.
I thought we had already agreed on that.
We had to check the legality.
We just wanted to check the
Just to check
legality.
those
So because we don't pay till the end of the season, there's no bargain at this point that I think we can go.
So we want to go from 350 to 500. Take it? 500.
Yeah.
So that's for the swim coaches. All right, I'd like to make a motion for the council to increase the pay for the Crafton Crocodiles swim coaches' pay, to increase it from $350 to $500 per season.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
And that's to take effect immediately, correct?
For this season.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Moving forward to public safety, reports received regarding chain of command from Crafton Borough Police, the Crafton Volunteer Fire Department, and the Public Works Department. Thank you for those departments for submitting those to council. And Charisma, they're on the Google Drive? All right, thanks. And we will be migrating those documents. So, all right, thank you. Just to clarify, the last meeting, we went forward with migrating from Google Drive to the new Office 365 OneDrive. So that'll hopefully be easier for people to navigate, and we're gonna be in the same environment. So thanks, Chris, for working on that. Discussion items, Rod, you wanna go over the office systems?
Yeah, Amcon Office System came in, and that's our current provider for our copiers. Came in when I first became an interim manager with the discussion because of the contract getting ready to, I guess we're ready to renew it. I wasn't real familiar with the office procedures and everything that was going on with the copiers. I did have another company come in to compare it, just to get a cost comparison, and see who we thought would be the, get the biggest bang for our buck. Chrisma and Catherine were probably the 2 point people on this, instead of the ones who use the office machine on a regular daily basis. I think Amcon came in and the proposal, when it was totally put together, I think my recommendation was to keep Amcon after talking with Chrisma and Catherine. The number of features that the Amcon provided, one of those was, I guess, council really wanted to see, and that was with the Nuance PDF provider, where we can actually have some transparency with the, I guess, the Adobe, am I saying that right, the Adobe Acrobat copies or documents. So you can relate on it, jump right in, Chris, because you really didn't share any information.
Yeah, originally we had asked them about the Adobe Pro, but then we actually found ways to do it at our own means that were always there, we just didn't know they were there. But the proposal still includes that nuance, which will still allow us to, I guess, use PDFs and forms and convert those into like Word documents or Excel documents and vice versa. They'll provide up to 5 free licenses for us for that program, even though we don't really need it, but.
Free, you say?
Yes, that's included in the proposal. But as we advance technology-wise, I do think that would be helpful for us, as far as like creating forms and stuff like that.
And another line item, I believe this was something that sort of took the office staff by surprise, was the price that we were paying for colored copies.
Yes.
And that was an astronomical amount, and I believe in this package, the new package, that it's a cost-saving measure, and there was, what was the number on the free colored copy, 5,000, I believe it
Well,
was.
it's 5,000 black and white or 3,500 color copies.
No, part of the package.
And previously, we weren't aware that we didn't have any color copies included in our agreement.
It was a costly addition to the copier contract. The other contractor, there was zero copies, you had to pay for each colored copy.
So it's like analogous to going over your minutes in the old days and like paying for extra?
Correct.
And you guys didn't know that?
At that point, no.
No, I mean,
They were unaware of the
Yeah.
costs associated with colored copies. I'm surprised to see how many we do. I mean,
Yeah.
Public Works doesn't do that many colored copies,
Right.
but I know the borough itself with the different groups and so forth come in and.
Plus, we also network that, the police department's printer as well, which they can now print color copies. So from them going from 0 to them using color copies too, it really,
so you
between
didn't
all of
really
us.
hit 3,500 though? Or 500?
We actually probably do a little bit over that,
Okay.
but they've also cut the cost of the overage in half too.
So maybe
So
that
instead of
Crafton
paying, I
crocodile
think
would be
it's.
black and white instead of green.
But that they're reviewing with the staff and looking at the proposals and discussion, I mean, my recommendation would stay with him.
So there was another company that we talked to early on, Ford.
They never reported anything back to us.
Yeah, well, he has been calling me lately, and he's been catching me out of town. So I'm just wondering if what is our timeline on this? Should we at least look at it?
It's,
The longer we wait, the more money it costs us.
yeah, because
So it's like,
the monthly contract we have now, we could save a lot once we renew this contract with this company. I think
so
Ford had
so
enough,
will they nullify the contract that we have right now?
no, we'll continue to pay at a higher rate. I mean,
So we're stuck with this rate until when, November?
until we sign a new well, no, we signed this new contract, I believe.
And I believe we have to give them 90 days if we decide to not
No,
continue the contract.
what gets me with Ford, that they never got back to us. Wilson's been calling me, sending proposals and talking and really trying to sell. I mean, Ford, to me, not to get back to us was sort of like a snub. I mean, I was a
Well,
little
you know,
surprised.
I actually will take that on because he's called me. I think that there was some delay, but in the last several weeks, he has called me, and I just.
Well,
Put them on.
to interrupt, let's
That's
say
all right.
this, let's have a action by next council meeting. So out of the 3 that were mentioned today, we have to make a decision.
That's fine.
More things too, Michelle from Collins is looking into trying to get something through the call. Because there's quite a few people who were out. So
Okay.
check with that, Rob,
Sure.
see if she's flagged and.
But at this point, you feel like the AMCOM has come back with the best proposal?
Yes,
Okay.
the best thing to do about the borough.
Perfect.
Okay.
And I don't care, if you feel that way about Ford, that's,
We'll look at it. I mean,
Okay.
so,
I'll call tomorrow and tell them to call Carissa, which is what I probably should have done a month ago, I'm sorry.
yeah, just tell them to get the proposals so we could
Yeah.
get them in.
Okay. And then, I don't know if anybody's seen the waste management Baxters throughout the community and other communities. It's supposed to alleviate the need for actually having this, metal container dropped off to your property. However, they become a nuisance when they aren't picked up timely, and you've seen them throughout the community again. There's instances where bags deteriorate to the point where they're not able to be picked up, and creates another issue, it creates dead spots.
Some of them falling into the sidewalks.
Yes, fall on the sidewalks. So I don't know what we can do maybe it's from an ordinance perspective, or just, public notice. Or I know you were gonna, Rob, reach out to Waste Management to see if we are able to say, hey, there's one at this property, come pick it up, and then, they're supposed to bill the owner, or is that something that can be tagged onto their bill at the end of the year? So I don't know what options we have.
Well, Waste Management told me it's a 3-day turnaround. Once they get a phone call from a resident that has those bags, they'll have it picked up within 3 days, 3 business days.
So the residents are calling them.
Apparently, I guess the residents aren't calling them and they're leaving them there, or think they're gonna fill more in it. There's nothing that we can do unless it's blocking the sidewalk. I mean, obviously, there's a code violation where they can be written up for that.
So we need an ordinance.
I believe you might need an ordinance as far as controlling that. I mean, either that or,
Yeah, we can't sit in people's yards for 6 months at a time.
no, but we probably could do, start out with the door and tell them you need to remove the rubbish from your front yard within 3 days. Since we know it'll be picked up in 3 days.
Mhm.
We can give them a code violation, tell them rubbish and garbage, even if it's in the bag, it's still rubbish and garbage.
You could probably do property maintenance violation on that
Right.
right now.
Right.
With
We
the
could
violation,
handle that,
right.
We could do that.
I
I think we could start that.
Easy,
and it's-
low-hanging fruit, door hangers, and maybe put a notice on the website to say, hey, listen, they're not, just because Waste Management drives by in their truck, those guys aren't looking for them. They're not making a call to pick them up or not. So I did talk to one resident, and they said, well, I thought they just drove by and they saw that it was full and they would pick it up. And I said, no, that's not how this works.
I can work with Waste Management trying to get something they have as far as a telephone number, and they can put it on a door hanger when they see those.
Can they don't reach out to their clients and say, hey, by the way, you've had our bag for 6 months.
It's like Phil was saying, you can pick those up at Home Depot, and you can grab them at Home Depot, fill them up, and they just go to call this. The instructions are in the packet, you can go to Lowe's, Home Depot, and get them. So there's no tracking them as far as waste management is concerned.
It's not like a roll-off dumpster.
Right.
Correct. Correct, yeah, I mean, because our understanding of how those bags work, you can buy them at Home Depot, so you pay with, I think it's like $35 for this bag, right? So they're not giving out the bag. Then you fill it, so once you fill it, then you're supposed to call up and say, hey, and then I think it's a flat fee for them, and they come and pick them up. And so the part that's not happening is that they're calling to fill them up.
Right. And I can work with Waste Management to see if they have any notifications that I can put with a door hanger or add to it.
Okay, okay. All right. Are there any other discussion item topics?
Yeah, I'd like to just talk about some of the stormwater problems that we had last week and try to brainstorm a little bit more about what we can do to kind of move forward with this stuff and do it in a timely manner. So my question to you is, just unpack this a bit more to Rob and Phil. So whoever wants to answer can. We have a mandate to go in and fix the sewers and separate the sewage from the rainwater, correct?
Part of the consent decree really right now is a combination community. They want you to have less infiltration in your system. They're starting with infiltration, whether it be water coming in around the line, through the line, water saturation. They're starting with infiltration like through the manholes, faulty manholes with brick and seepage and so forth. They want to keep out as much water as you can and going in the system.
And cut peak flow.
Right. So generally speaking, the answer is yes, correct?
Yeah, that's the direction that the county's going. If you look at the 167 Act, that's, and phase 2 of the plan, that's where we're going.
Okay. So my question is do we need to maybe think about outsourcing some of this to a different company than to go ahead and give us some proposals as to a better plan of action?
Right now, there's a major regionalization plan going through Alcosan. And Crafton's part of that. But they're actually going to take over a number of the trunk lines throughout the borough. I think the best thing to do right now is to wait and see what happens with Alcosan, because this is going to happen sooner than later. I mean, there's meetings and discussions with the engineers, with the borough, as far as taking over these main trunk lines, such as the Steuben Street line. I'll put that out there as an example.
Okay.
So I think one of the best things to do is wait and see how much Alcosan is willing to take upon themselves. And those are the main players in the game. Once we see how much Alcosan is going to take over in the regionalization process, then I think we'll have a better idea what you need to do from a borough standpoint.
But generally, no, please.
But wasn't there some discussion that I remember last year, or maybe it was at some workshop, where there was some concern about evaluating those lines ourselves, because once Alcosan takes them over, we have no control over what they will or won't do with them?
Well, the first thing Alcosan wants to do is, when they take over the region, the lines themselves, is make sure they're in proper working condition. And right now, I mean, every year, there's a preventive maintenance plan that goes on throughout the borough. The lines are TV, there's spot line repairs. There is maintenance that goes on a regular basis, and it's probably a big part of your sewer budget. You're spending probably $250,000 into the sewer lines in the borough.
Yeah, like a couple of meetings ago, we approved another Shake Hog
Right.
PM project.
So, yeah, and that's all part of the consent decree, you're required to do that. Even TV in the lines. I mean, after the lines are TV throughout the borough, might take 2 years completed, then they'll go back and re-TV the lines again to make sure there's no other structural failures. So the lines like we do on Sterrick was TV a year and a half ago, but we're going to check them again to make sure where the plumbing, or where the flooding was, that there was no additional damage or anything wrong with it. But there's an ongoing preventive maintenance plan required by the consent decree for the municipalities to take care of their lines.
So if our TV stuff shows that there is nothing wrong with those lines. Where does that leave those people? Where does that leave us? What should we be looking at?
I think I said it earlier, I think the first thing you do is disconnect rain leaders. Don't have all the water come off your roofs going into your lateral, your line.
Then what happens to that water?
They just flood out the neighbors.
That water, well, we'll use Stairs Street, most of that water would end up down in the wooded area and dispersed through the ground. But then again, we have.
Which wooded area are you
Going
talking
towards,
about?
down to the end of Starrett and Parade. That's a low section. You go on Starrett runs this way. Those houses are actually tied in on the alley because they couldn't tie in on Starrett because of the slope. They actually tie in on the alley next to Starrett. So some of their
So
water
you're talking
actually.
about behind, closer to the city?
It sounds like this, I mean, it's just a redirected conversation, because
Sure.
Rob's the public works director by trade. I think it really requires, you know, more in-depth review by the engineer, and if I can add to the conversation, I think it's high time that we consider getting a fresh set of eyes on the issues. Something that
They're trying to go with that.
came up was Crafton Boulevard. Where does that water go? All right, there's 40 acres of water up there, and you know I've heard that some of those drains, they all go into our system. So we're draining possibly the state route system into our system. So the overall goal is to minimize peak flow, to take flow out of the system. So there have been ideas that I've heard from you know, senior members of the community of separation projects, but at that time there wasn't really a lot of regulatory teeth out there to help the borough, and there wasn't Alcosan providing the type of funding avenues. So, you know, we need to, you know, look at the project with our engineer and possibly bring in, you know, additional set of engineering guys to really help evaluate the big plan for the borough. Because without 167 coming down the pike, and I think the solicitor is working with us to help defray some of the cost and for the new ordinance, which they want us to adopt that ordinance by December? End of November, we're gonna have to adopt a new ordinance here, and so we can't punt on this. We have to take action, because it's gonna commit us to take certain actions on development and just existing, you know, properties that we have. So, I mean, and with that, they're gonna defray some of the cost of the attorney fees, and we're doing some cost share, and so we're gonna get some assistance from the county on that to adopt 167. But really, when you talk about like unfunded mandates, this is one of those that's been pushed down from the federal level, down to DEP, down to the municipalities, and we're gonna have to figure it out. And it starts here at the local level, and you know, this is gonna be one of many evenings where I'm gonna debate it, and so we just need to evaluate, do we have the best team to help us address the new challenge? If anything, it can, I think the possibility of going out for proposal to help us evaluate that will you know, facilitate that move to make sure we have the right resources sitting at the table with us, making these hard choices.
I think I'm interested mostly in figuring out a long-term solution, because this, you know, borough government is pretty small potatoes, but this is a fairly large fish in this tiny pond. And if we can't begin to figure out how to put something together and look at, you know, hey, these people are getting flooded on the street because, you know, they have an 8-inch terracotta pipe that's moving the stormwater that was built in the 50s, and we have an engineering firm that, like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm like naive or whatever, but it would strike me as like a pretty good place to start looking and saying, maybe we should pull the street up here and redo this, and redo the street here, and fix this pipe now, because we know this pipe.
Well, let's say it's not about fixing, that's like saying there's something wrong. It's about making the system more resilient. We acknowledge that whether we like it or not, there are trackable numbers that say that we're experiencing a climate change. You know, the southwestern part of Pennsylvania is becoming wetter, all right? And we have to address that. That's why at the county level, they brought in Baker to help the county plan for, you know, plan with Three Rivers wet weather to help us tackle these, issues. And then, it doesn't just affect, the borough of Crafton. As we've seen, it's affected multiple municipalities around us. I mean, our solicitor, his other gig is president of Ross Township, and they had severe flooding. So it's a thing that afflicts us all. But we definitely need to make sure that we have the right eyes on it. And that's,
Well, if I could, I'd like to make a motion to the floor to go out for a request for a proposal for a different set of eyes from a different engineering firm to take a look at what we can do better, and how we can fix this and order it in some way that we can then take it out to our constituents, especially those being affected, and then come back with an actionable item so we can fix it. So, long story short, I'd like to make a motion to do an RFP for a new engineer.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Gateway Engineer's been here for 60 years. They know this borough inside and out. You have a little storm and you had some water back up in some people's basements. And you're sitting here trying to blame Gateway Engineers for that. It's not the case. You went up on Sterrett Street and told people that their flooding basements were because one councilman objected to the project at the other end of Clearview. Clearly, we know that was not true. Clearly. The problems with Sterrett Street did not happen because of what this councilman was against on the other end of Clearview. But some of you council people went up there and told those people that. Now we have this flood and you want to bash Gateway Engineer. They've been doing a good job. They know everything about Crafton. They probably do 50% of the municipalities in Allegheny County. They have every map, they have they know all the streets, they know, it's not funny. It's not funny what you're doing here.
They have every map. Is that so?
They have everything.
I'm just saying, do they have every map?
What are you looking at? Why do you think this is funny?
It's not funny. It's very sad that we don't have every map.
It's sad that you're coming in and turning everything upside down, and you're spending all the borough's money. That's what's pretty sad.
Like I spent $1
And you
million
have these
on the
other
TV, is that right?
that are agreeing with you. So part of the discussion, it's not funny. Part of the discussion is that Gateway knows what they're doing. And they're the top of the heap. They're the top of the power. And because you can't get away, you can't seem to stop micromanaging companies and micromanaging people and come in here like you've got all the answers. You don't have the answers. So, I'm gonna vote to not put any proposals out for any other engineering firms because they've done a good job.
Thank you.
Can I have the floor?
Yeah, one moment.
Okay.
It's to say that Gateway Engineer has been doing a good job for the past 60 years, but are they the firm to take us into the next 60 years? And
Well, I don't know about you trying to make Crafton something that it is not.
We don't know that because we haven't moved forward with that type of review in 60 years. So how do you know what you don't know? So we need to take an evaluation of what's out there, and if they are the best resource, then may the best team bring forth the best personnel and
So you're gonna
professionals.
ask them to submit a proposal?
Of course.
So now you're just flexing. You're flexing to
Point of order,
Gateway.
Mr. President.
No, don't
Ad
interrupt
hominem
me.
attacks
I
need
got
to
the
stop.
floor here. I have the
Regardless.
floor. I have the floor. So what you're doing now, you're putting out these RFPs and you're flexing and you're saying, look, if you don't do it my way, we're gonna get rid of you. Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're doing?
No, we're not flexing. We are taking the community's business very seriously, and it's very important that we have the best solution brought forth to this
Well,
community.
I would disagree with that.
Ms. Perry.
I would disagree with what you're doing.
I would say, basically seconding what you have to say, if Gateway is the best resource, we should have them. However, it is not good business to not be looking around for such critical services without being sure that we have the best resource, the best team, the best professionals that we possibly can at the most reasonable prices. And I'm going to go so far as to say that the demeanor of the Gateway personnel that was here at our last meeting underwhelmed me. And I didn't feel like he showed the respect and the concern for the community that was here. So I am all for putting it out, making sure that Gateway has their fair shot at it. I think that if they understand that there's concern, they may begin to take us more seriously. But they've had this business for 60 years, and they expect to keep it, and they expect to not have to compete for it. And in this day and age, everyone has to compete for this kind of business.
I agree, and under, a lot of discussion with Mr. Kazarowski and deliberating with him and trying to figure out what the best path forward for the borough, I take a lot of his input very seriously. I mean, I take all your input very seriously, and when we don't get the type of detail in our invoices that we expect, it brings a lot of concern. There may be an opportunity for them to bring that to us and make sure that we, the borough, are getting the best value, that we are getting the same deal that other communities get. But when you have 60 years of untempered escalation and really, you have a lot of institutional relationships, but you don't have the institutional knowledge anymore. We lost our lead engineer, and it just brought to light that there's a lot to say that the people really do mean a lot in an organization. And hopefully that, through this process, Gateway will say, hey, we're gonna bring the A team to Crafton and make sure that we get,
So you're flexing.
No?
Point of order.
But if there is another firm out there that can provide equal or better value, and really we're looking for better value, that understands our issues, that has experience dealing with some of the issues that we're dealing with possibility of doing lots of separation in the community. There's some issues that have been that you say, an issue over here does not affect an issue over here. Well, yeah, it's a whole system.
No, you're wrong. You went up there and lied to those people. You went up there and lied to those people.
The system is connected.
You did that.
Point of order.
Point of order, Fred.
Point of order. You went up and lied to those people.
Nobody lied to anybody.
Yes, you
It's a
did.
connected system. And if you say it's not, then...
The project on Clearview's got nothing to do with the problems at Starrett, and the engineer sat there and said that it didn't.
This council person clearly has a personal agenda against the council president, and so if we can't keep our comments to the points on the table on the agenda, then we will have to take, I think, some additional actions to keep this body in organized fashion. This is insane. This isn't about Philip. There's people on McMahon who are flooded.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
It is.
Fred.
He can't get along with anybody.
It doesn't matter if he can get along with anybody or everybody. People flood in this town, and it's not okay. You like to make a joke about it. It's not
I don't
okay.
make a joke
Yes,
about
you
it.
do.
I make a joke about you guys going up there and lying to those people and telling them that other project has something to do with Starrett. It's an out-and-out lie.
It's
You
not a
lie.
lie, it's a system, all right?
I can't sit here and be quiet about that. I'm sorry.
Listen, we
I
can bring it
can't
up on
sit here and be quiet about it.
Fred, listen, we don't need to argue about it because it's nothing to really argue about. It's just system. It's all connected. It goes into the same line. That's why it is all connected. It goes into the same line. That's why we're trying to stop peak flow. That's the entire issue. All right. The reason why people had backup is because there was not enough capacity in any of these lines up in that part of the neighborhood to accommodate it because it all junctioned down to the same line. And so when you don't have enough capacity, there's head pressure. It's going to back up. And that's what happened. It's a classic example. Any engineer...
I disagree with it.
Oh.
And the engineer disagreed with it too.
Hey,
There's a motion on the floor. Let's just move on.
Underwhelming.
There's a motion on the floor.
Thank you. But as I explained to the public, It's all the system. We just need to look at the system and make sure that we have an engineer that understands our system. And Gateway, for 60 years, I don't understand.
And all of a sudden, he doesn't understand the system, is that what you're saying? You understand it,
When
but
there's
they
a lack
don't,
of
is that what you're saying?
documentation, When there's a
There's a
lack of
motion on the floor, let's just have a vote.
You don't have the floor, I'm speaking of the president of this council. So, I know, it's funny.
What a joke, it
I'm
is a
still
joke.
here, 6 years later, 6 months later, I'm still here as your president. So with that being
Not
said,
my president, we talked about this
all
already.
right, I'm still your president, I'm still signing the
All right,
documents.
well, there's a motion on the
So
floor,
with
let's
that being
have a vote.
said, the public needs to understand that it's tied together. We have a combined system, that's why they call it a combined system. So for everybody watching on YouTube, please understand it's a combined system. We're trying to mitigate the effects of heavy rainfall. Last couple weeks ago when we had the rainfall, it was an act of God, all right? But we want to make the system more resilient so we can accommodate those types of issues, all right? We live in a community that's over 120 years old, and we understand that with that, our systems are older, and the entire executive board of this county understands that. The federal government understands that, and they're telling us, listen, you have to change, you have to make sure that you're moving forward to mitigate this, because if we don't, we're going to continue having sewer overflows, and the big thing is that we're putting sewage into the Ohio River through the Chartiers, and that's what we don't want. We don't want our sons and daughters, playing in the sewage. All right, we don't want.
Come on, let's move along here.
We don't
How long
want
is this gonna go on?
It's going to go on as long as I can
Jeez.
speak. So that's what we need to understand, and that's why we're taking along. So I hope everybody understands we really do want to evaluate. And if we have the best team, great. And if we don't, we'll see who they are. And we can plan for the future.
Time the floor, please.
Sure.
So I just want to rebut some of the things here. Well, I'm not going to do that. Let me ask you guys this.
There's a motion on the floor, why don't we just vote?
This is part of the
You want to
discussion.
still argue about it?
That's the democratic process.
So, Gateway has been here for 60 years, and I'm wondering how old some of these lines are in this town.
100 years.
So they've had 60 years to address some of these issues, in other words. Would that be a fair assessment?
I would say that things are changing, and therefore, I would say it's unfair to say that there's been any type of negligence for 60 years.
Sure.
But to say that we've been experiencing change for at least the past 20 years, there's been a lot of system thought change, with how we even pick out road surfaces. Some of the technology that we had 100 years ago, like the brick streets that everybody loves, is actually the better technology in a lot of ways. But every instance requires different evaluation.
So, I mean, this is not anything against Gateway Engineers. They're a fine engineering firm, and they have a lot of business in western Pennsylvania and Allegheny County. I'm a good capitalist, and I'm a good entrepreneur. I like competition. I like seeing if we can save money somewhere. So, I mean, if we want to continuously just
Do you know how much we spent last year with them?
No, educate me.
It was nearly 300,000. Do you know what our road program was, total spend? Almost 500K. So where did those dollars come from? It didn't come all out of the road program, it came out of our sewer program. So we should really know where our sewers are. And we don't know where the Crafton Boulevards, the State Route 60, Old Ridge Roads, drains go. We don't have a map. I take serious issue with that. That's why this is being brought up. And and we have issues with invoices. This is another reason. It's about accountability. And we can't be complacent.
Thank you.
So with that being said, I'd like to move forward to
Citizens process.
No, we have to take a vote on the motion, right? Or no?
He's right.
Abby's right.
Yeah,
We
he's
have
right.
to ask for
Any citizens' comments on this?
This was not on
I
the agenda.
had a question. Are we coordinating with surrounding municipalities or the Allegheny County in our sewer program?
In the regionalization program, yes. It's all done through the neighboring communities. They're all part of it.
Thank you.
I have one comment.
Kathy,
This place was packed 2 weeks ago. Standing room only. We're bringing chairs in. Those people came up, They complained to you. Now you want to do something. Do you see one person here that was here 2 weeks ago?
I do.
Cleaning their house.
Where? Were you here 2 weeks ago? Okay, I'm sorry. One person out of standing room only.
Do you have any emails?
I
you received?
complained a year and a half ago about a house. I came twice a month. It's fixed, the problem's fixed, and I'm still coming. Why aren't those people here again tonight? They came, complained, and now, do you see them? I've been coming back and saying, what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it?
Probably still-
Not
Thank
one person except this gentleman right here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd just like to
Huh?
say.
Dennis,
Oh.
I need to have some kind of order here. Like, it's just, yeah, come on.
I just want to say, when I was this gateway thing, you know, it's always good to look into something else. It's nothing against you unless you have interest in this company.
I
Okay?
don't have any interest.
Then why not sit there and take a few moments and look into something different? Instead of arguing about it. Okay? To help the people out around here, yeah, that little bit of water cost me $4,000.
$4,000?
Yeah.
So it's not funny, right?
Okay?
No,
So,
it's not funny.
now, put that in your basement and then sit there and pay for it. And sit there and go, we're not going to look at the source, we're not going to look at anything else. We're looking for solutions.
Yes,
Okay?
absolutely.
So let's not give everybody a headache by you arguing with them, but asking, sitting there going, looking for another solution here.
Well-
And see what else they have. And that's all I'm gonna say. Okay? We're here to be open-minded.
Sure.
Okay? And let's not argue about it. Okay? Let's look into something else. Maybe they're not the best anymore. Okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to come up and say your name,
Not a
please?
problem. Crystal Beeman, I live on Belvedere Street. I would just like to say that a simple driveway that's absolutely beautiful next to my house was put in a few years back. It's a paved driveway. Since that time, water pours off of that driveway because of the way it's graded, and it floods my vehicle. I mean, it comes up to the curb. And this didn't happen years ago. I mean, it was I don't even know what it was. It was dirt, gravel, a combination of cinders. I'm not sure what was there. But I never had the problem of getting out of my car and having a flood up to the curb. So this is a very small situation that I've dealt with and I've never complained about because it's an absolutely beautiful driveway. It benefits my property. It probably helps the value of my home. However, when I think of a system, and I've worked in engineering for a long time, a system works together. Everything works together for the common good. And I think that the council, if you vote to approve this motion, should shop. It's always good to check your vendors and make sure that they're in line with the value that we can get for our dollar today. And I just think that it's a good thing to shop. And Freddie, I've known you for a long time. I don't like to see you lose your cool like this. I'd like to ask you to keep an open mind and let them shop. You know, I think Gateway has probably done a good job and they have a lot of knowledge. But knowledge is easily given to the next person, especially with today's technology. It's, people don't like change, and I think that we need to embrace it, and I think that we need to look out for the constituents of this community. And I'd just like to thank you for bringing up the water issues, and I'd like to say that keep an open mind. I'm sure Gateway's done a good job.
Thank you. And sir, could you say your name and address, please?
Hi, my name's Roy Neiman, live over on Haldane Street. Two things that came to my attention. One is our system's overwhelmed at times. But I also heard, I'm not sure if it was you that said it, but to stop running our roof water or drain water right into the system.
Yeah, the interim manager, public works director.
Oh, okay. That alone overwhelms the system. Philadelphia, I moved out here from Philly 3 years ago. Philadelphia had a huge problem with that. And if you could start to work on that with residents. Now, it's a double-edged sword too, because what you said about your driveway, instead of going into the system, it's going to run out into the streets, and especially those back driveways. It's going to wreck them. But I'm all in favor of taking a second look at this company and getting bids out from other companies. I agree with you wholeheartedly. 60 years, they get settled after a while. Oh, and one final comment. We should have maps of every system, or all our sewer systems. If we don't, we're in big trouble. I don't know if you I'm sure you realize that, where'd that come from, kind of thing, So thank you for letting me comment.
Yep, thank you. So just a comment to clear the record. At this time, I would advise against separating your leader lines from the system, because we don't have another system to take the stormwater, all right? You have to have a means of conveyance, all right? And that's something that's very important. So as much as I agree with Rob on that being a long-term solution, in order for us to have that type of solution present, you have to have the separate system. And a lot of communities are going through multi-million-dollar expenses to do that. So that's why, Alcosan, EPA, DEP are working with older communities like Crafton, Borough to help us, make a transition, to find the low-hanging fruit, to make separation where possible, feasible, because we don't want to flood our neighbors out with our stormwater. All right, their water has to have a place to go. All right, and we need to work with an engineering firm to help us figure out what the economics are, what's the big plan, take ward by ward, if you could look at the old wards, and figure out what the best solution is to make it all work so we can lower peak flow, to allow for more capacity in the current system. And then overall, we're accomplishing the goal. So hopefully, through this process and having this dialogue, and we're gonna have this conversation again on multiple other evenings, we can come to a solution that benefits the entire community. So with that, are there any additional comments from council?
Do we have to amend the motion to request the borough manager to go out to request bids? Because I think Brad said though, just we want to go out for bids.
You could direct that. That's not a bad suggestion.
Okay.
So
So
I amend my motion to say exactly what Abby just said. Have it referred in the minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. And then you seconded it?
I second. So
Now,
I
who was
concur.
who was the-
I was the second.
You motioned.
yes, I'm
So you have to,
Oh. The motion?
yeah, because he just
Yes.
proposed the motion, you made the motion, so you have to accept Abby's amendment, as does Coletta.
So as the motion maker, I accept the amendment that Mr. Rosario presented.
And I concur.
Okay, so we're set for vote.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed?
No.
Please note for the record, the no vote. All right. Moving forward to community announcements, just an ongoing notification. Savvy Citizen is our public information application with a live calendar. It's downloadable as an application on your smartphone, tablet, or device connected to the App Store. So this is it's a great method of communication. Charisma, you're doing a wonderful job helping facilitate that, and I think you're working with different board leads and group leads on administrator privileges, but you will still be the person authorizing the post. So great. Concerts in the Park begin Thursday, July 12th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. This coming band is the West Hills Symphonic Band, pardon me. The senior dinner, Saturday, July 21st, 2018, doors open at 5 p.m. Ingram Days, Saturday, July 21st to Sunday, July 22nd, 2018, from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. at Foster Park. Crafton Public Library, Thursday, July 26th, 2018, at 6 p.m. held at the Crafton Community Center. Crafton's Got Talent, a special event for talented kids. Open to children ages 17 and under. Register at Crafton Public Library. Crafton Ingram Rotary Rib and Chicken Fest, Thursday, August 2nd, 2018, at Crafton Park.
Is this the thing with the llama?
Mm.
Yes.
Yes.
Crafton Community Farm opening gardening nights, Sundays 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Tuesday 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Thursdays 5 p.m. to dark. More information can be, I guess they want you to email for more information at craftoncommunitygarden@gmail.com. The school district tax collection Tuesday, August 28th, 2018, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Is that here at the Borough?
Yes.
Friday, August 31st, 2018, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. For all those residents concerned about the flooding, we are working with Mr. Deasy's office and the county executive's office to see if there's any type of aid available through PEMA. So if residents can report their flood damage to their local municipal emergency management coordinator, in that case it would be Police Department Chief Sumter.
And if we can, anybody that we know of, get in contact with and let them know that we're at the meetings, or
I believe we already reached out to
and
the
more
residents
residents,
with the contact with us.
anybody that,
Yeah, so it's gonna, it's gonna escalate up to PEMA, and we'll see if any of the claims are, yeah, and the flyer's on the back table, and you posted it in the office as well, and did we post it on the web yet? A link to the information?
I believe I did.
Okay,
I'll
just
double
double check.
Sure will.
So, again, we're trying to help, it was an active job there with the amount of rain that we saw that day, and there's been other days in the forthcoming weeks or the previous weeks that have created a lot of damage in Allegheny County. So if you're in Crafton Borough, you can call 412-921-0752 and ask for the chief's office. And then in Ingram Borough, it's 412-921-3625. Again, just another reminder, there's a 2018 side yard and blight structure program. It's accepting applications through August 31st, 2018, and it can be found at the web at www.crafton.org. So, moving on to additional citizen comments for items that weren't on the agenda. Mr. Dennis? You good? All right. So, with that being, I don't see any additional citizen. Oh.
I just have a question. Can you expand on the side yard and blighted structure program?
So, if you live next to actually a little bit.
Hey.
Could you come forward?
Yes.
Could you come forward and speak to the audience, say your name and your capacity here?
Hi guys, we're the interns doing vacancy and blight and GIS stuff. If you want to pass around the junk first a month and get a chance. Okay, well, hey, how you doing? It's been 2 weeks since we last spoke. Hope the water has settled down a little bit. When the agendas can be passed around, you'll see on a list of accomplishments, hang-ups, the summary of what the beat has been able to accomplish.
I think you wanted those to go
Oh,
to
I think they wanted you to talk
council.
about
Okay.
the council project.
I thought they were.
I know you're in there.
Just any side yard program.
Hi, yeah, starting with the side yard program. So the side yard program is through Allegheny County. If you find a property that is 3+ years tax delinquent, it is probably eligible for the blight or vacancy side yard program. If you apply, you have the opportunity to potentially adopt a property that's preferably adjacent to you, but if it's a vacant lot or has a structure on it, you might be able to get that property for free through Allegheny County. Pretty great.
That's interesting.
Well,
It's a little bit of a process.
I think if it's less than a half acre, it's for free, but it's a little bit more than that. It has some.
Mine's a quarter acre and it's not free.
There's some fees associated.
Okay, reduced amount.
Yeah.
So hi, yeah. You
All
wanna hear
right,
about-
so you want to step over here, Chris? All right, come forward, please. All right.
Hey,
So
okay.
Eddie Solomon, Chris Bell, now go into your spiel.
Yeah, sure. So first things first, we've completed our 6th BEAT meeting, the Blight Enforcement Action Team. We've talked about a lot of different things, a lot of policy items, which we should have brought to your attention the last 2 weeks, but also we have some more stuff to bring to your attention this week, especially for the solicitor. First, I want y'all to check out the really fancy map that we were able to create of the sales and assessment real estate map. As you can see, the dark spots represent
The double-sided map where there's two, the one on the left, thanks, Brad, is weighted by the sale price. These are over the past 20 years, I believe. This is a cluster map. And then the one on the right is just, there's no weight, just volume. So you can see the differences where there's high volume but low sale price, or vice versa, or where they match up. If I remember off the top of my head, a good example is the top right of Ingram. There's considerably more sales there than the sale price itself, and it's a decent way to identify certain areas of the community that maybe sale prices aren't matching up, but there's still a lot of sales. And I think the big takeaway from this is there's still a lot of volume over the past 20 years of properties moving.
So clarification point.
Mhm.
So the two, in the Crafton section, these two
Yes.
red, I assume are red blobs,
Yeah.
dark black blobs, those are then the just constant resale of properties then, is basically what you're saying, or am I misunderstanding?
They're not necessarily
Sales,
constant
high
resales,
price.
yeah, it's just the number of sales over the years, so it might be the same property moving, it could be different properties all the
So
time.
these are basically the flashpoints of where things are holding up well and getting high.
Correct.
Successful areas of the market, so dark spots are high sales, high volume. You also see a lot of high sales in general in a lot of other areas, but they're not nearly as high priced.
Okay, so basically, if you don't live on, I'm having a hard time seeing it, but anywhere that's not this is depressed in some
They're just
capacity?
not as high as the neighboring communities around them. It's not necessarily that they are so low that it's an issue, but there are, it's just looking at the highest and the lowest in a clustering analysis. It's not a cluster.
So, but those, we could be saying those areas, those lighter areas are
Yes.
stable and there aren't properties going up for sale.
So the areas where there's
Yeah.
no data,
That is true as well.
there's no sales.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I hope you enjoy that map. That's one of many we hope to roll out and for this exact analysis to see where there's hot areas in the market right now and less hot areas. The less hot areas we think personally, professionally, are worthy of investment in order to bring up some of those prices potentially or to help people to have
Or
higher
people
property.
who aren't interested in selling. I
Yes.
mean, you guys have to keep that in mind.
Yes.
You know you are data guys.
No, well,
But, you know, you're
That's
not
when I didn't
looking at
finish my
that
spiel,
side.
but yes, that is the other side of the coin also. If we wanted to stabilize housing prices in some of these areas, then we'll do other things to address that, exactly. So thank you for bringing that up.
Well, that's what I think we
Sorry, I
need.
had
No,
no
no,
insight
it's
there.
a good point. I think that's why the inverse is interesting, where it is high volume, but the sale price is a little bit lower.
Yeah, I mean, that's important to look at, that there are a lot of areas here that just,
Mhm.
houses don't go on the market.
Okay, so that's one item. We have a few hangups. We need a contact for Duquesne Light. We've been trying to reach them for data and we have not had any success. If anyone has any ideas for a contact for Duquesne Light?
It's a 1-800 number back from the Wackett Hill.
Yeah, I've tried.
It goes like this.
What type of data are you looking for?
We're looking for any GIS layers they might have in streetlights specifically. If there's a county, or sorry, like a borough contact or a government contact.
Specific locations?
Yeah, if they keep track of the locations themselves, but like the XY coordinates that we can map out and then track.
Yeah,
the
there
progress.
are people there mapping.
Yeah, I,
We tried. Yeah, if you have any ideas,
We
good
have
contact.
a rep that represents Duquesne Light, his name is,
yeah.
What, they changed, somebody
They
Yeah,
changed.
that's the rabbit hole I started going down, is they've just changed it a couple times.
We're working on that.
We can get you a total number of streetlights.
Yeah,
But
I did
we
see
want,
that.
we want the X, Ys,
I did
and
see
Rs.
that.
We need to know what they are, where they are.
That's right, that's right.
So we'll, all right, next.
We have a lot of items to share with our code enforcement officer, sharing data, talking about policy recommendations, potentially teaching GIS competency, et cetera. We have a lot of things that we should talk about, so let's make a schedule at some point. Probably in the next few days, we can hang out. Awesome. Moving on to the beat summary, we are ready to test out 2 different streets per borough to experiment with some of these code enforcement policies we would like to move forward on. For example, a little bit more pressure on some streets to see if in a short amount of time there's any successes or any follow-up that we can talk about
So
afterwards.
like a door hanger for the Bagster people, maybe.
If you have street ideas, yes, we're open to taking
We
them.
start that 3 low.
We're still recruiting for the side yard program. If anyone has anyone who is adjacent to tax delinquent properties, let us know or go online. I give them a business card afterwards. So yeah, and you had some success. Awesome. All right, and finally moving on to recommendations. There are 2C right there. You found Act 167 Stormwater Implementation Grant. You might look into that.
Yep.
Is that for the individual or just?
It's for the borough.
For the
So
borough.
we just had some chat with Steve.
Excellent.
The 167 is over here.
We are recommending the vacant and rental registry program. The solicitor has reviewed documents related to the vacancy, but we also have memos we'd like to pass out through email, which goes into depth of what these programs are and what we've been able to find when other counties and boroughs have adopted them. And lastly, the TOD program, you guys already are aware of it. July 24th is that workshop. And it sounds like also zoning updates are in process.
Okay, and could you make sure you forward over the invite to Kristen so she can put it on the Outlook calendar for council?
The TOD.
The TOD.
Yeah. We chatted with Ingram today, and they're going to participate as a full member. They were previously just going to hop along for the ride, but they chose to participate in full. So they will be getting their own recommendation packet at the end of this first period, and that then means that Crafton will get their own recommendation package as well.
Cool.
Is there anything else we want to talk about?
No.
Any questions?
Could you ask Connect to send over their calendar of events for us to make sure that we're all in the loop on those events?
Sure.
Say we're looking for your Outlook, trying to get everything built in the Outlook calendar for council.
Yeah, I called called Liverpool this morning, and I talked to one of the reps. He was planning to reach out to every borough this week, and hopefully some updates to that, so you can email them up and see if they can do that.
Yep, I just want everything to put on the shared council so everybody's aware.
Oh, and one of the packets, the thick one, is for you specifically, Mr. Solicitor, for the quality of life ordinances. There's a lot of good information in there to consider. So.
Okay, take a look. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
everyone.
good job.
Thank you.
So with that last update, I'd like to move to adjournment.